Good morning and welcome back to Saruwatari Xtreme. Today you're riding with me in the 355. The 355 is more of an analog car. It's very enjoyable. You don't have traction control and you can feel that you just don't have all those computer aids. So it's a nice car. It doesn't have a tremendous amount of power by today's standards, but it is a car that's a lot of fun and they become quite reasonable. The killer part of it is that maintenance and the timing belt. But other than that, for what you get that Ferrari experience and the sound the 355 makes. It's by far my favorite V8. On the 355, I took the same strategy I take on most of my exotics or supercars. I wanted to change the aesthetics and make it nice, but as reliable as possible, or as reliable as any Ferrari can be. But I am happy to say this car has not left me stranded anywhere. It's been a great car to drive, and I still enjoy it a lot. But again, to enjoy it, you have to go back to the time when it was made. I mean, compared to my newer cars, it definitely feels different, let's say. But all in all, what a great experience. On the 355 in the interior, you could see that I changed the seats to Subi Sports seats. With the center inserts changed to the Fly Ferrari yellow to match the exterior of the car, and A&L Racing embroidered in the top as my usual characteristic. You'll see that Group M helped me with the carbon fiber door panels. Which are extremely light and look quite nice. Then to tie it all together, the center console and gauge clusters are also done in carbon fiber. So we're all done in carbon fiber just to tie everything together and give it that sporty feel and look. Now, going to the exterior, I wanted it to have that classic look. I couldn't find anything that I liked that I felt would not make the car look dated as it got old. I feel it's held up pretty good. This car and the NSX have done really well for me as far as they still look very, very contemporary, even though they've been around for quite some time. Now, as far as engine, what I did was I changed the exhaust to a 2B exhaust, which is something I highly recommend. That's what gives you that real nice exhaust note. And I changed the intake to a carbon Kevlar Group M intake. I went with carbon Kevlar because it's just something different and also has the yellow tied into the weave, which I felt that was nice to tie it in the car. And luckily, Mr. Agose, the owner of Group M, also made the trim panels in the engine compartment, or the tin, in carbon Kevlar. So that was nice that it matches. Above that, the lower diffusers, he also made those in carbon Kevlar. They're pretty unique. It's kind of an interesting thing because they're pretty pricey. No one can really see them unless you look. But boy, I feel good knowing that they're there. And honestly, with a lot of project cars, that's the deal. It's all about how it makes you feel. But the feeling in this is very good. There is something to talk about also on the engine side. Like the F430, which I've talked about before, the 355 is prone to exhaust manifold failures. Even with all of Ferrari's racing and F1 experience, they still have issues as well, and it was pretty predominant. Now, my good friend Gary Kawakami, who was the service manager at Auto Gallery, advised me that with the second gen that I have and the amount of miles I put on, my 100 to 200 miles a year, he really didn't think it was necessary. But for those of you that want to put more miles on a 355 or are thinking about getting one, I would recommend changing the manifolds, because you can get the crack in the manifold, which sets you up for the venturi that pulls debris into the cylinder and wipes everything out. And the manifolds of choice, from what I'm told, are the 2Bs. But since they aren't made anymore, trying to find one might be very difficult. Other than that, the car's been solid, or as many others say, bulletproof. I'm hesitant to say that because all my cars typically have so many issues. But this car's been a lot of fun and still drives very well. So, also, you'll know this on the wheel and tire department. So, this car had the first set of HREs I ever bought, and I literally almost had a heart attack when I got them. I think they were in the ballpark of close to like $8,000 or $9,000, which at the time I wasn't used to paying $8,000 or $9,000 for a set of wheels. Now it's pretty much the norm, but that's why I'll probably never change these wheels, because they were my first set of HREs and I really like the design. I went as well with the conservative design. That way I hoped it would stand the test of time. I'll let you guys be the deciding factor in that. And as usual, when I went to the 19-inch wheels, the problem that developed was my brakes looked too small. I didn't have a braking problem, they just looked too small. So, of course, I had to go see my friends at Brembo, and they set me up with a complete Gran Turismo upgrade brake package. And the nice thing about it was that it used F50 and F40 calipers. Now, my friends, I love the F50 and I love the F40, but they are both out of my budget unless I was to sell many other cars or property or assets, which I really just don't want to do. But at least it's a great conversation piece, because when I talk to people, I could say, yes, I don't have an F40 or an F50. However, I do have their calipers on my 355. It's amazing, man. When you get one of these cars, the conversations you have with people are amazing. I'm telling you, you'll know. And the biggest thing is the gas station. When you guys go to the gas station, you'll have to comment down below with your stories about what people ask you, but it is pretty insane what comes up at the gas station. I honestly try not to go and fuel when it's crowded, because it becomes just an insane amount of conversation of stuff that you would just never imagine that people would ask you. drive because she is completely hungover from her adventures last night. So I'm the designated driver, even 2 days later. That's how hardcore she is. DJ Speed Racer there. And of course, I'm at home working and taking care of our daughter. Just kidding. But in any case, not all the time though. But about today, we're taking the 355 out for a ride. Go ahead and check it out and see how she does spinning. I have never spun this car, and neither has Drew, so she thought maybe she would take it for a whirl as well. As many of you know, the 355 was my first Ferrari. But what many of you don't know is there's a story behind the 355 that involves Drew and I, and that is why Drew wanted to join me today. It could be said that the 355 is one of the main reasons, in fact, it is the reason we are together today. Because had I not got the 355 and had it at a show when she was modeling, we would not have probably met. Now, some of you may believe in, I don't know, karma? But for me, I kind of don't think that would have been the case. When I got the 355, NK was using the 355 for advertising. But we had to go to Hot Import Nights, and a good friend of mine and his wife, Dan Anzai and Stacy Anzai, were setting everything up, and somehow between NK Corporate and Dan Anzai running everything, there were 2 models booked to model in front of this 355. So what ended up happening is, one of them stayed with the 355 and one of them stayed with me. And life has really never been the same since. But let's hear from DJ Drew here on what she thought of the first impression of what was going on.
Well, first of all, I didn't exactly know who Adam was or what I was supposed to do that night.
Unbelievable. Quite a few people in the industry knew who I was, so that was kind of ironic from the beginning to start with.
Yeah, even Dan was like, "You don't know who Adam Saruwatari is?" I was like, "Sorry, no clue."
So ever since then, my life has been much different. Here we are, I don't know, 20 years down the road, plus or minus. I've aged enormously. Drew stayed the same since she's been 25. Life is cruel that way, but I don't know why. But luckily, she decided to stay with me. For me, I guess. Maybe. Not so lucky for her. But in any case, the most interesting thing about the story that she tells is what she actually thought I would be like. So since she had no idea who I was,
like I said, I had no expectations whatsoever, so I figured, you know, he's gonna be some short, fat, bald Asian guy, so...
What in the... Yeah, okay, so, I'm sorry, she's exaggerating a little bit. That I don't remember it being exactly like that, but geez, man. I mean, and if that was the case, if that's what you thought you were going to be modeling for, boy, man, you should have been ecstatic.
Wasn't complaining.
Since that was Drew's idea of what I would be like, boy, I'm lucky she even showed up for the job, amazingly enough. But let's talk about the 355 after that reminiscent story that was pretty sad, to be honest with you. Today we're going to see how the 355 does in spinning. We took it out for a ride, and Drew has never spun any of my cars, so she wanted to give it a whirl, so we'll see what happens here. Okay, so do you have any questions? Pretty straightforward. Crank the wheel, let it rip. Just try not to hit anything.
What?
Are you ready or not?
I think I'll pass. Okay. I'm getting sick.
a blast taking out the 355. Something I don't get to do too often, and I really don't get to drive over railroad tracks very often. And almost bottom out. We made that. Jeez, man. That is a surefire way to ruin your weekend in any exotic or supercar, is bottoming out or hitting something. So we'll take a look, go ahead and bring it in, and I hope all of you have a good weekend. See you next time.